I never imagined I'd be humiliated at the gala until a billionaire saved me with a single move. The lights flickered, blinding me with their intensity. My heart raced, pounding against my chest as I stumbled over my own feet, desperate to blend into the crowd. I felt the heat of embarrassment creeping up my neck, burning my cheeks as whispers raced around me. Did you see that? What a disaster. The laughter was sharp, slicing through the air like a knife. I was drowning in their judgment. I gripped my champagne flute, cold glass against my clammy palm, wishing I could disappear. My dress, a beautiful sapphire blue that I saved for this night, suddenly felt suffocating, a costume that drew attention I didn't want. I half expected the floor to open up and swallow me whole. As I scanned the room, chaos spun around me. A golden chandelier cast cascading light over the sea of tuxedos and silk gowns, but all I could feel was the weight of their stares. My best friend, Clara, stood across the way, her eyes widening in shock. I knew she'd come to rescue me, but there was something behind that look, something I couldn't quite read. Was it pity? Disgust? Then I saw him, the billionaire, tall, with dark waves of hair, a confident grin that could stop time. He moved through the crowd as if he owned the entire gala. The way he commanded attention was magnetic. No one dared to whisper when he was near. The fabric of my world shifted as I watched him approach, every step full of purpose. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice low and smooth, cutting through the noise like a beacon in the fog. Instinctively, I took a half step back, reassured by the power radiating from him. I swallowed hard, words escaping me. I felt small, but somehow safe. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a loud crash erupted from the other side of the ballroom. A waiter stumbled, a tray of drinks exploding across the floor like broken glass reflecting shattered dreams. Gasps echoed, eyes darting, gasping for breath with a mix of shock and joy. "Stay close to me," he urged, just as all eyes turned toward the chaos. My heart quickened, thundering. He reached for my hand. For a moment, the world stood still. The warmth of his grip ignited a flicker of hope amidst the sea of despair. What was this stranger doing, saving me in front of the crowd? As I clutched his hand tighter, I couldn't help but wonder what would come next. Would he abandon me once the storm passed? Or was this the beginning of something I never saw coming? My mind raced as I caught a glimpse of desperation reflected in the eyes of the guests around us, their collective judgment swelling like a tidal wave ready to crash. I was about to find out just how deep this humiliation would cut. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The noise of laughter morphed into a surreal hum as I stood there, rooted to the spot, my hand gently enveloped by his. Something deeper than mere curiosity stirred within me. Perhaps it was vulnerability intertwined with the allure of his presence. As he leaned slightly, shielding me from the chaos, the world beyond him blurred into insignificance. "What was that?" I finally managed to whisper, my voice trembling as we both turned to see the aftermath of the waiter's blunder. The spilled drinks formed a chaotic pattern on the marble floor, a visual representation of my jumbled thoughts. I was ripe for ridicule all over again, and yet, I found an anchor in his gaze, steadfast and unyielding. "Just a slip," he replied, his eyes flickering with a mix of amusement and concern. "It happens." His familiar confidence nudged something awake in me, a persistence against the humiliation that felt suffocating moments before. Clara approached, her expression more determined. The self-proclaimed queen of social nuances didn't hesitate. "There you are?" I thought you. Her gaze fell to our intertwined hands, the color draining from her face. It wasn't judgment or pity I recognized earlier. It was fear. Fear that she'd lose me to something she couldn't comprehend. "Clara," this is I began, but she held up a hand, cutting me off. "I know who he is," she said, her tone a mixture of awe and concern. "You shouldn't be here alone. Come, let's get you a glass of water." "No, it's okay. I protested, pulling back slightly from her grasp. I'm fine. Are you really? She shot back, the tension creeping into her voice. It's not just about you right now. You've been the topic of conversation all evening. The billionaire remained silent, watching with an intensity that made my skin tingle. He'll look after her. Thanks, he said softly, a hint of protectiveness in his tone that I don't need babysitting. I interjected, finally recognizing the burn of indignation rising in my chest. For the first time tonight, I felt a crack forming in the wall of self-doubt. Sometimes, it's not about needing, he replied, his gaze holding mine steady. It's about wanting to be there for someone. And right now, you look like you could use a friend. The warmth in his conviction cradled me. If I leaned a little harder into this moment, would I finally manage to drown out the cacophony of judgment? But just as that flicker of hope began to bloom, a bitter voice broke through the resistance rising in me. Lucy. The name rolled off her tongue like venom, slicing into my fragile moment of clarity. It was Vanessa, the self-styled diva of our social circle, trailing behind in an entourage of perfectly curated followers. Her eyes sparkled with malice, and I braced myself for the onslaught. I almost didn't recognize you in that interesting dress that I clenched my jaw, refusing to let her taunts penetrate the walls I'd built around my heart. Thanks, Vanessa, I replied, forcing a smile. It's nice to see you too. The silence that followed hung thick, vibrato in the air as they absorbed the exchange like a well-rehearsed scene. Isn't this the gala where everyone shines? She continued, thriving on the discomfort she orchestrated. You seem a little dim tonight, don't you think? Her laughter stung like a swarm of bees, and I turned to the billionaire for solace, only to find him watching with a disapproving frown. But instead of retorting with fire, he simply stepped closer, mirroring my stance as if forming a barrier between me and Vanessa. You should know better than to throw stones in glass houses, Vanessa, he said calmly, his voice a tempered steel. You only expose how fragile your own are. The tension shifted, surprise rippling through the room like a gust of wind turning the pages of a well-worn story. And there it was, the unexpected kindness that had been absent since the gala began. His defense took me aback. It shouldn't have mattered, but it felt like a small breach in the dam of sorrow I'd been carrying. Vanessa's smirk withered as she stepped back, clearly not prepared to engage further with someone of his stature. Whatever. Don't say I didn't warn you, Lucy, she retorted dismissively before flouncing off with her entourage. That I drew a breath, stunned and shaken. The crowd adjusted around us, and what had once felt like judgment morphed into murmurs of intrigue. It was all I could do to hold myself steady, overwhelmed by this new complexity of reality. Just when I thought I could breathe, a whisper of shadows gripped me tight. Maybe we should find somewhere quieter, the billionaire suggested, his thumb brushing against my wrist lightly. For a moment, I wanted to lose myself in whatever adventure awaited outside the confines of the gala, chance to escape this tangled weave of self-doubt and despair. Yet as we turned to leave the crowd, I received a text that illuminated my phone's screen like a storm flashing over the horizon. The message was from Clara. We need to talk. It's about your father. He's in trouble. The weight of those words clave my heart, and even though I was ready to step into something new, reality had other plans. This wasn't just about my night. It was about everything that lay in the wake of the chaos I carried with me. I felt the color drain from my face, the flicker of hope snuffed out. Lucy? The billionaire's voice pulled me back, piercing through the fog that engulfed my thoughts. Where are you? I looked up, my heart racing with dread, knowing that just when I thought I could rewrite my story, the chapters of my life were about to take a darker turn. The momentary reprieve I found in the billionaire's presence began to slip away, replaced by the cold grip of dread. The text from Clara flashed like a warning sign in my head, reverberating through every anxious thought. We need to talk. It's about your father. He's in trouble. With a single tap of my trembling fingers, the promise of escape solace became a distant memory. Lucy? Are you okay? The warmth of his concern cut through the icy grip of fear, and for a fleeting moment, I considered confiding in him, spilling the weight of my father's troubles onto his shoulders. But something held me back, tethering my tongue and locking my heart away. There was too much at stake, too much I had to shield from others, and yet here was this man who'd just defended me against the very source of my insecurities that I I just got a message, I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't meet his gaze, couldn't bear to reveal the tempest of emotions raging within me. It's about my father, as the realization settled in his eyes, the atmosphere shifted. He stepped closer, an unspoken understanding flickering between us. Family? He asked gently, his voice a soothing balm against my fraying nerves. Yeah, I replied, the tightness in my chest suffocating. He's not, well, I need to figure out how to help him. The words felt heavy and foreign, like I was letting a part of myself escape into the world. There was a pause, and I sensed the delicate nature of our connection teetering on the brink. I'm here if you need me, he offered, sincerity radiating from him. I don't know what you're facing, but I can help. The kindness in his tone activated a warmth I hadn't expected, yet I felt unworthy of his concern. There were too many shadows lurking in my past, too many burdens I had yet to face. I appreciate that, I managed to say, but I need to handle this alone. A flicker of disappointment crossed his stunning features, and I cursed myself for drawing the line between us. And just as I was about to dismiss the thought of revealing more about my life, a familiar figure stepped forward, Clara's face etched with urgency. Lucy, she called, weaving through the crowd with ferocity. I've been looking for you. We need to talk now. The new wave of stress crashed over me, but this time, there was something different in Clara's eyes. Alarm. I turned back to the billionaire, searching for his guidance in this fragile moment, but the connection we had briefly shared seemed to slip into the ether. Excuse me, I muttered, torn by the conflict brewing in my chest. As he watched me go, I could feel the weight of his gaze pressing against me, a tether reminding me that I wasn't entirely alone. Clara pulled me aside, her voice dropping to a hushed tone. Lucy, it's worse than I thought. Your father, there are allegations against him. You need to understand that they're serious. The world faded around us, my heart racing at her words. Allegations? About what? Fraud. Financial trouble, she breathed sharply, glancing around as if the very walls could eavesdrop. People are starting to talk, and it's spreading. If this gets out, it could destroy everything. I felt the ground beneath me shift, the solidity of my world cracking like an eggshell. Not this. Not my father. It can't be true, I gasped, but the doubt seeped in, crisp and biting, as memories of whispered conversations and hushed tones lingered in the back of my mind. Lucy, listen to me, Clara urged, gripping my shoulders with a desperation that mirrored my own. We need to protect you. The last thing you want is for your name to get dragged into this. I know you've been through a lot already. My thoughts spiraled, and as Clara spoke, I caught a glimpse of the billionaire observing from a distance, those penetrating eyes filled with concern. What did he know about the world behind the facade of wealth and glamour? What could he possibly offer me in light of the impending storm? But before I could fully process the chaos in my mind, a figure emerged from the shadows near the entrance, a silhouette that drew my focus and stole my breath. It was my father, strained and worn, his eyes darted over the crowd like a hunted animal, desperation etched on his once confident face. Lucy, he called through the crowd, his voice a strained echo of familiarity. I felt my heart drop, fear engendering a tumult of conflicting emotions. Why was he here? Why hadn't Clara told me he could show up? He spotted me and began making his way through the throng of guests, panic igniting in his eyes as he hastened forward. The moment felt like a climax suspended in time, the smattering of applause, the clinking of glasses, and then the sharp, jarring reality that everything dear to me was slipping away. Lucy, we need to talk. Now, he panted, and I could sense the urgency in his voice. I turned to Clara in a daze, her mouth slightly agape as she took in the scene, and then back to the billionaire, who watched with a mixture of concern and something I couldn't quite place. My heart thudded insistently, drowning out the noise of the gala around us. And then, with the weight of every unsaid word hanging between us, I realized the waves had just begun to roll in. The storm had not only found me, but was intent on crashing down, and I stood, caught in the crossfire of impending chaos. Lucy, my father called again, desperation etched in every line of his face. As uncertainty clung to me like a shroud, I took a step towards him, a force pulling me into the eye of the storm. The night's promise of something better melted away into the shadows, leaving only questions, the kind I was terrified to face. And just as I reached for the hand that had once guided me, I was met with the prickling fear of what would come next. The air in the gala thickened, each breath a struggle as I stood frozen, my heart caught in a tempest of fear. My father's eyes reflected both urgency and despair, a mirror to the turmoil blurring my thoughts. Around us, the laughter and chatter of revelers faded into a muffled backdrop, an eerie cocoon that separated us from the world outside this bubble of bright lights and elegant gowns. "Lucy, please," he pleaded, his voice strained, a man unmoored and desperate. "We don't have much time." I glanced back at Clara, who bore an expression of shock mixed with concern. She seemed torn between protecting me and grappling with the implications of my father's presence. The billionaire, now merely a spectator on the sidelines, began to fade from my periphery, the connection we had forged evaporating amid the chaos. "What's going on, Dad?" I managed, my voice trembling, eyes locked onto his. "What trouble are you in?" He took a step closer, desperation flooding his demeanor. "There are people who think they can ruin our family, ruin everything we've worked for. And they're getting close." The weight of his words crashed over me, heavy and suffocating. "Close how? What do you mean?" "Allegations, Lucy. People are spreading lies over financial discrepancies, missing funds. I don't know how it got this far," he confessed, his voice low but laced with a raw panic. "And I'm scared. I won't let them take you from me." I felt a flicker of something I hadn't expected. Anger, and as swiftly as it sparked, hurt swallowed it whole. "You're the one who kept me in the dark. I could have helped." He interrupted, frustration rising to the surface. "I was trying to protect you. This isn't a fairy tale. You don't understand what you're dealing with." And in that moment, my resolve hardened, fortified by a mix of disbelief and disappointment. Maybe it was true. Perhaps protecting me meant keeping me in a bubble, unprepared for the storm that was now crashing against my very being. "You think I'm weak? That I can't handle it?" I shot back, feeling the heat of the gala lights bearing down on us like judgment. "How could you keep me from this? You let it all unravel. And now you show up here, at my moment of responsibility, expecting me to turn my back on everything I've worked for." His face, once so authoritative, cracked under the weight of my words. I watched as the walls he'd built around himself crumbled slightly, a man portrayed as unbreakable, now visibly shaken. I thought it was for the best," he said softly, the confession heavy like a stone dropped into still waters. The silence that followed felt unbearable. Voices teetered around us, moments of laughter caught between my father's admission and the sense of impending doom. I wanted to scream at him, at the universe that led me here. I was on the brink of drowning in an ocean of responsibilities I hadn't asked for. But just as the waves began to swallow me whole, a small voice broke through the noise. "Lucy." It was the billionaire, striding towards us, his silhouette cutting through the myriad of colors and warmth surrounding the gala. There was determination in his steps, a fierce urgency that made me realize he hadn't abandoned me after all. "Are you all right?" he asked, his focus piercing through the chaos, honing in on me as if sensing the energy fraught between my father and me. I opened my mouth to respond, but words felt inadequate. I was caught between a father desperate to shield me and a world ready to pull me under. "No," I finally whispered, the weight of revealing all suddenly overwhelming. "I'm not okay. My father." "I need you to calm down," he said, his tone steady yet reassuring. Without hesitation, he turned to my father, his eyes firm. "Whatever's happening, I want to help. Help." My father's incredulity was palpable, but desperation softened the edges. "This isn't a game. We're talking about serious allegations here. You don't understand what you're up against." There was a moment of charged silence as I looked back and forth between them. My father, poised to lash out, and the billionaire, exuding quiet strength. What was meant to feel like an alliance instead felt like a potential rift, a conflict, pulling me in opposite directions. Incredible kindness paired with raw familial loyalty. I was caught in the storm of obligations, torn between worlds. "Just listen." The billionaire's voice rose just slightly, cutting through the simmering tension. "Whatever is happening, I will stand by you both. You're not alone in this, Lucy." He looked at me, his expression shifting to something more tender, more understanding. My heart raced. Could I really trust him with the fallout of my father's choices? Could I trust myself enough to let anyone else in again? My father's eyes flickered with uncertainty as his expression shifted from doubt to a guarded acknowledgement. We can't get caught in the public eye, Lucy. If this news breaks, he'll figure it out, I asserted more resolutely than I felt, fueled by the rare glimmer of hope their presence ignited in me. But I won't do it alone. A tight-lipped silence hung heavy in the air as my words took root, poised to grow in the fertile ground of acceptance. Yet I felt a creeping dread. I had no idea what lay ahead, what truths were still hidden beneath the surface. Doubt wrapped itself around my heart, twisting like a vine as I forged my resolve. Before I could process the next wave of emotions crashing over me, Clara reappeared at my side, her brow knitted in a frown. Lucy, there you are. I've just heard something else. It's worse than we thought. There's more to the allegations than just financial troubles. What do you mean? I heard them say something about another name, she whispered. The fear in her voice felt tangible. Your mother, Lucy. They might pull her into this. At that, horror tore through me. Just as I began to grasp the anchor of support given to me, the ground shifted again, sending me spiraling back into an abyss of uncertainty. My family was unraveling, and with my pieces scattering, I needed to prepare for the storm that was rushing towards me. Lucy, we need a plan, the billionaire chimed in, glancing at both my father and Clara, the weight of what was happening hanging in the air. Now, but as I looked around at the shimmering gathering at the once so inviting atmosphere, transforming into a more treacherous landscape, the reality sank in deeper. I had a choice, but the weight of making that choice clawed at my heart, thrumming with fear in every beat. Would I step into the depths of this fight with my father, allowing the shadows to lay hold of my life once more? Or could I allow something new, someone new, to guide me through this storm? The answer danced on the edge of my conscience, a revelation not yet formed. But as Clara leaned in closer, I could feel the thrilling gust of change rustling. And just as hope ignited for the complex road ahead, the unexpected twist loomed larger than life. The weight of Clara's revelation hung heavily in the air, a dense fog of disbelief wrapping around us. My mother? The words felt foreign, clumsy on my tongue as they slipped out. I fought to ground myself, gaze darting from Clara's worried face to my father's increasingly pale expression. Yes, Clara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. People are saying they can leverage your mother's past, if they can make a connection. The sorrow in her eyes spoke volumes. The unspoken worry we both shared for a woman whose absence had woven its own thread of pain through our lives. Leave my mother out of this, my father uttered, his voice cracking, revealing the pain that suffocated him. A stubborn anger flared in his eyes, ignited by the mere idea of anyone tarnishing her name. It was a protective instinct, the kind that had initially distanced him from me, and now seemed to consume him entirely. Dad, I urged, stepping forward, desperate to breach the gap between us. You can't just ignore this. If they're going to use her, we need to act fast. You don't understand the full extent of what we're dealing with, he argued, a deeper worry etched into every crease of his brow. They're ruthless, and if they think they can target your mother, there's no level they won't stoop to. Clara pointedly stepped closer, her resolve stark against my father's unwieldy fear. Then we do what we can to protect her. We band together. We can't let them take away the only family you have left, and perhaps that was the crux of the matter. I had been so lost in the swirling chaos of my own emotions, so focused on my own hurt, that I hadn't seen how deeply this was affecting the people I loved. I resolved, with new determination, that I wouldn't let my mother's absence be another weapon used against us. I'll reach out to her, I asserted, pulling out my phone, feeling the steady hum of determination building. I can warn her, Deno. My father warned, his voice lowering but rising with intensity. You can't put her in danger by drawing attention. They'll know you're looking for her. You need to stay inconspicuous for now. Frustration simmered in my chest as my finger hovered over her contact. But that's exactly what they want. They want us to hide and cower. We need to confront this. Before he could respond, the billionaire stepped closer, eyes keen but gentle. Lucy, listen to your father. We're walking a minefield right now. The more we act out of panic, the more we put everyone at risk. The ocean of emotions crashing against me bore down heavier than ever. I yearned for connection, an unshakable bond that could anchor me through the unruly tides of fear and fate. But in moments like this, Even the elegance of the gala felt tainted, ominous. "Trust us. We'll find a way," he continued, his gaze returning to my father with a tempered authority. "He'll use my resources to investigate, quietly. We can stay ahead of this, but only if we're strategic." An unpredictable spark ignited within me, a glimmer of hope bolstered by his confidence, the promise of a fresh course navigating the storm. "Okay," I breathed, letting the air fill my lungs again. "But we must act quickly. The more time we give them, the closer they get to winning." Silence lingered for a moment, the weight of our grim resolution pooling in the air, tainting what was once celebratory. The people twirling in the background continued unaware, trapped in their own stories while the fracture in ours threatened to consume what little stability we had left. Clara took my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Together, we'll figure this out." And just as the words settled around us like a blanket of solidarity, the gala was suddenly interrupted by a crescendo of commotion. A shout echoed louder than the music, jagged and jaggedly triumphant. The crowd began to part, anxious murmurs flooding in as a shadow emerged from the throng, one that brought in immediate tension, a figure I recognized swiftly. Jonas, the man who had been a fading ghost of my past, stepped forward with an unsettling confidence. His golden smile, once disarming, now felt like the cresting edge of a violent wave. "Ah, Lucy, fancy seeing you here," he drawled, eyes glinting with mischief as he approached, unfazed by the tableau of uncertainty that had formed around us. "I came looking for you. What do you want?" I asked, the words laced with a controlled defiance. He was an unpredictable element, a known risk. Yet here, he dared to challenge the frail peace we had just forged at it seems, he began, leaning closer with an air of conspiratorial glee, "that there are threads linking your mother to these allegations. Fun little fact I picked up. But don't worry, I wouldn't dream of letting this slip. Your family isn't the only one with secrets, dear." Panic stirred within me, my father's hand clenching at his side, Clara remaining steadfast beside me. The ground beneath felt fragile, ready to collapse beneath the weight of his insinuation. "What do you know?" "Oh, just enough to color the narrative beautifully," he shrugged, the playful smirk twisting into something sinister. "But it's all speculation for now. I mean, the gala wouldn't be complete without a little scandal, would it?" I gripped Clara's hand tighter, feeling the panic boil between us. I couldn't let fear control my fate again, and yet, my heart raced with the knowledge that this may very well be the beginning of a path woven with deception and turmoil. "Leave us alone, Jonas," I stated, each word balanced on the edge of defiance. But could I uphold that? "Oh, sweetheart, consider this your opening act," he chipped, turning his gaze to bypass me, his attention drifting through the gathered masses. "But I think you might find the real performance just waiting in the wings." The energy around us shifted again, electric and unpredictable, as a sense of impending crisis wrapped itself around us like a noose tightening with every passing moment. A blast of laughter erupted from across the room. But for me, it faded into an indistinct background noise, eclipsed by Jonas' looming presence. And then, as if the universe were cruelly contriving, a flash of lights illuminated the ballroom, revealing countless cameras pointed our way. The world was watching. I could feel the spotlight sear through my skin, illuminating my worst fears. As the laughter surrounding us faded into silence, one shocking realization crashed over me. I was standing on the precipice of an avalanche, and I had no clue how to halt this slide before it consumed us all. The dance floor pulsed with a frenetic energy, an undercurrent of laughter and chatter that seemed to mock the storm brewing just below the surface of our fragile gathering. I could feel every eye on us, some curious, others delighting in the chaos now unfurling. The shadows coalesced around Jonas, who stood firm, a dark specter against the light of the gala. "Let's take this outside, shall we?" Jonas suggested with an insufferable grin, the words rolling off his tongue like poison. "I wouldn't want to ruin the evening for your guests." That my heart pounded violently against my ribs, a raw reminder of thrumming panic and the gravity of the moment. "We're not going anywhere with you." The defiance in my voice felt like a lie, hollow yet desperate. "But I think you will. After all, you wouldn't want to damage your precious reputation, would you?" The sharpness of his tone twisted the knife deeper, the implications swirling around us as if conjured by dark magic. I was acutely aware of my father beside me, the tightness in his stance echoing the fear threading through our entire family. He looked like a man forced to confront a truth he hadn't been ready to face. Clara raised her chin defiantly, her eyes blazing with an inner fire as she nudged me slightly, a silent signal to hold steady. Before I could react, Jonas turned his attention back to the party, flashing a smile that wasn't meant for us. Just wanted a little chat about family matters, you know. Let's not cause a scene. The way he leaned into his words sent an icy shiver down my spine, pairing unsaid threats with an air of charisma that made him even more dangerous. Jonas, Clara stepped in, attempting to shield me like a sentry. You need to leave. Now he waved her off with an exaggerated flourish. Such fire. You three will need that spirit when the truth comes tumbling out. But don't fret. I've always been one to appreciate a grand performance. With a flick of his wrist that felt almost theatrical, he turned to step away, leading the way with a confidence that was at once infuriating and fear-inducing. I exchanged a glance with my father, a flash of understanding passing between us. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was about survival. Are you really going to let him do this? I murmured to my father, barely able to contain the tremor in my voice. We can't let him play with our lives like this. His silence weighed heavily, imbuing my spiraling thoughts with a tension that threatened to drown out any flickers of hope. Before I could dwell on it any longer, Jonas called back over his shoulder. Don't keep me waiting. The show's about to start. He stepped into the throng of guests, the crowd instinctively parting for him like a school of fish avoiding a predator. We have to go, my father finally said, his voice steadying as the fear etched in his features hardened into resolve. Clara nodded, and together we steeled ourselves for what lay ahead. As we moved toward Jonas, I braced myself for whatever performance fate had in store for us. Setting my jaw, I clung to the hope ignited within a flickering candle in an encroaching darkness. Moments later, we stepped outside into the evening light, the stars a stark contrast against our swirling anxiety. The air was crisp, a cleansing breath against our tumultuous minds. The tension had shifted outside the growing crowd had gathered, their expressions hanging somewhere between curiosity and intrigue. But what lingered in the air was the uncanny sense that we were no longer in control. Jonas leaned casually against a wrought iron railing, eyes glimmering with mischief as they traced our approach. Ah, there you are. He gestured for us to join him, but I had no intention of letting him dictate the terms of this encounter. What do you want from us? I demanded, forcing my voice to hold steady despite the uncertainty gnawing at my insides. Easy now, Lucy. We're all adults here. I merely wanted a chat, he replied, the sarcastic syllables dangling like taunts. Let's say an opportunity has presented itself, and what kind of opportunity would that be? My anger bubbled over, replacing the fear that had threatened to paralyze me. His smile widened. One that could frame your mother in an entirely different light. All she needs is a little push. A small incident here, a scandal there, you understand. Each word hung over us like smoke, choking the air and filling me with a sense of dread. You wouldn't dare? Dare is such a strong word. I prefer to think of it as illuminating the darkness. He relished in the effect his words had, each syllable a dagger aimed at our collective insecurities. Before I could respond, a familiar voice broke through the oppressive tension. What's going on here? A woman stepped forward from the crowd, her face a mix of confusion and concern. It was Mrs. Patterson, an acquaintance from my childhood, always too eager to offer platitudes about family and reputation. Jonas straightened instantly, his demeanor shifting to one of charm. Just a friendly discussion about family matters, he crooned, casting a side glance at me that felt like a betrayal. Lucy and I are just catching up. Seems more like trouble to me, Mrs. Patterson replied, her brow furrowed. For a brief instant, the crooked path unfolding ahead seemed to wobble on its axis, the glimpse of her intervening kindness a lifeline amidst the shadows. Jonas waved it off. Oh, don't be foolish. We're all simply sharing insights, nothing more. Isn't that right, Lucy? But overwhelmed by a fresh rush of emotions, I turned my back to him, seeking solidarity in my father and Clara. They're going to destroy everything, I whispered, not just for our mother, but for the weight of legacy we were struggling to uphold. I could feel the cracks threatening to split our controlled panic wide open. Clara's grip tightened around my forearm. We won't let them. No matter what, a backup plan tumbled into my mind, desperate thought that could either save or damn USI, resolved to confront this head-on. ID used the narrative wrapped around us to reclaim control. We were not merely pawns being manipulated. We were wielders of our own fate. Yet, as I gathered my strength to edify our path forward, Jonas cleared his throat, returning to the forefront of our collective tension like an ill-omened plague. Oh, but I think you'll want to pay close attention. There's more to this tale than you know. Remember, Lucy, every hero's journey has its villains. And I happened to be one for the ages. Just as I was about to respond, a flash of movement caught my eye, a familiar figure rushing through the throngs, impassioned yet lost amidst the unfolding drama. I squinted through the gathering night, the silhouette merging with the increasing chaos, and when I finally recognized the advancing shape, a chill of disbelief coursed through me. It was my mother, stepping into the brightness of the gala, unknowingly thrust into the unfolding storm, an unexpected revelation threatening to splinter the fragile semblance of security we had clung to. Mom, I screamed, the word tearing through the shocked stillness. The faces around us turned, surprises etched into their masks, and just like that, the delicate fabric we had fought so hard to weave began to fray, unraveling against the darkness Jonas had sown. The chaos that erupted at the sight of my mother cut through the air like a blown fuse. She stood there, radiant yet confused, caught in the crosshairs of my trembling resolve and Jonas' wicked grins. As I rushed forward, my heart raced with both relief and fear. Lucy, what's happening? Her voice, usually a warm blanket of reassurance, felt like ice clinging to my spine. Stay back, I shouted, instinctively stepping between her and Jonas. You don't understand, I won't let him hurt you. But Lucy, you're making this far too dramatic. Jonas chuckled, but his eyes held a cruel glimmer. Mommy dearest isn't in any danger. Not yet, at least. I just want to enlighten her about her lovely offspring. I sensed the crowd shift, a swell of anticipation growing amidst the tension. The gala's music faded into the background, replaced by the echoes of held breath and murmurs rippling through the onlookers. Enlighten her? My mother's brow knitted together as she took in the scene. What is this about? Jonas' smile widened, his voice dripping with ostentatious charm. The matriarch graces us with her presence. I merely wanted to discuss how certain family issues could quickly spiral into public spectacles. This isn't funny, Jonas. You need to leave us alone. My voice trembled, the prospect of our entire world unraveling at the seams balling my fists tightly. But isn't it beautiful? The way every family has its secrets, hidden away like valuable antiques? It's only a matter of time before they're exposed. He leaned closer, his expression mocking. Especially when your mother has kept a slew of skeletons in her closet. Stop, I yelled, panic clawing at my throat. This doesn't have to go any further. The flicker of sympathy ignited in Clara's eyes, grounded amidst the storm. He's trying to break us apart, Lucy. Don't give in to him. But Jonas continued, spinning his web of malicious delight. Oh, but I must confess, I enjoy watching the facade decay. The truth has a way of turning the purest hearts black. He pointed at my mother, enunciating with deliberate malice. Perhaps she can enlighten us about her own sordid past. I'm sure the world would pay handsomely to know. The crowd leaned closer, avid for the anticipated scandal. The very air hung heavy with an unspoken excitement. I felt bile rise in my throat, a burgeoning storm brewing inside me as confusion swirled around us, blurring lines between right and wrong. Mom, I reached for her hand, grounding myself. You can't let him manipulate you like this. I am not, she replied, her voice steadier than I expected. But there's something he knows that could change everything. My heart lurched. What do you mean? She stepped forward, breaking away from my grasp, her gaze locked with Jonas. What do you know? He responded with a devilish smirk, a glimmer of triumph gleaming in his eyes. Now that's more like it. Seasoned negotiations, I see. He turned to the audience, arms open wide, as if inviting them into an elaborate play. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever had a secret weighing so heavily it threatened to drown you? Jonas, I shouted, my composure teetering on the precipice. Enough. This isn't a game. But it is, dear Lucy. It's a game where I hold all the cards. Are you ready to play? He paused, letting tension bloom while the crowd hushed further, leaning toward the spectacle. Tell me, Mrs. Parker, how does it feel to hide the truth of your family? My mother hesitated, the color draining from her face. I could feel the collective gasp around us, the weight of judgment lingering on each breath. I don't know what you're talking about. Very well. John asked. Condescension dripped like honey, infectious and suffocating. Perhaps I'll just have to remind you. There is a certain event that transpired when you were younger, one that could drastically alter the narrative of this family, even the legacy you've spent years constructing. The crowd whispered, the power of intrigue binding them to the spectacle of our unraveling. I felt the ground beneath me shift, the reality of our fragile situation crashing against my instincts. I grasped my mother's wrist tighter, trying to guide her back, but her eyes were fixed on Jonas, a deep fear smoldering within them. Leave her alone, Jonas, I screamed, desperation spilling over like fear. You don't know what you're doing. Oh, but I do, my dear. I'm exposing the truth. And once it's out, there will be no escaping it. He addressed the gathering crowd, the audience captivated by each twist he orchestrated. Welcome to the unveiling of the Parker family secrets, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're ready for the truth to shake the very foundations of perception. In that moment, the world slowed, the chaos fading into an echo, as if I were trapped within a glass bubble. The faces of strangers blurred into insignificance. All I could see was my mother, her fear layered beneath layers of bravado. In a heart-wrenching instant, a single thought clawed at my mind. What if her past was as tainted as Jonas suggested? What if everything we believed about our family wasn't as pristine as we thought? My heart raced not just from fear, but from a sudden gnawing dread, an unsettling inkling that Jonas held a truth I had never been prepared to confront. Lucy, my mother whispered, her voice barely above the din as her eyes glistened. I'm so sorry. Before I could process her words, a flicker of movement erupted from the back of the crowd. A figure weaved through the masses, heading straight for us, determination evident in their stride. I squinted, my breath hitching as clarity washed over me, and my heart dropped into my stomach as I realized who it was. It was Marcus, the one person I'd tried so hard to avoid in this chaotic mess. The very same person whose knowledge could either save us or devastate everything we'd built. Lucy, we need to talk, he shouted, desperation tinging his voice as he pushed his way toward us. Marcus, no, I yelled, panic coursing through my veins. But John's smirk deepened as he leaned back against the railing, reveling in the impending chaos he had masterfully set into motion. This wasn't merely a confrontation anymore. It was a full-blown storm, and we were caught in its eye, teetering on the lip of calamity. I felt the impending dread wrapping around us like a vice, squeezing tighter with every passing second. And as Marcus reached us, the crowd buzzed excitedly, waiting for the next shocking twist in our fractured tale. Secrets threatened to unravel like raveled threads, and I couldn't tell which way was up anymore. Lucy, I need you to trust me, he breathed, urgency pulling us even deeper into the chaos. But in that moment, trust felt like a distant memory, a flickering candle fighting back the encroaching darkness. I didn't know which way to turn. Hope and despair danced dangerously close together, and with every step forward, we seemed to lose more ground in the spiraling chaos Jonas had set into motion. As I stood there, frozen by the weight of my heart and gnawing uncertainty, the truth seemed inevitable, and yet it hovered just outside my reach, the harbinger of all that could shatter. My heart raced as Marcus closed the distance between us, his expression frantic. The tension in the air charged like a storm, crackling with energy that both electrified and terrified me. I could feel my mother's anguish beside me, her eyes darting from me to Jonas and back, searching for a lifeline in the torn fabric of our family's secrets. Lucy, please, Marcus implored, desperation steeped in his pleading tone. You don't know what's coming. What do you mean? What do you know? I felt the knot of fear tighten in my stomach, mixing strands of dread with an almost instinctive need to protect my family from the chaos lurking just out of sight. Jonas chuckled, a dark note of triumph coloring his laughter. But the gentleman has impeccable timing, doesn't he? Just when the family secrets begin to bubble to the surface, a white knight rides in, cape fluttering dramatically in the wind. Shut up, Jonas, I barked, rage igniting at his taunting tone. My focus turned back to Marcus, who looked as though he were grappling with some unbearable burden. "This isn't just about your mother, Lucy," he said, his voice ringing with urgency. "This involves you too. I've seen things, learned things that enough." I snapped, the turmoil inside me boiling over. "You don't get to stand there and act like you've been some kind of savior. Not when everything is falling apart." His gaze softened. "But I am trying to save you." All this time, Ivy's sudden roar of laughter rang out from the crowd, breaking into our conversation like waves crashing against a fragile shoreline. John's voice sliced through the air with a sinister sweetness. "Oh, the lovebirds. Isn't it heartwarming?" A reunion spun in chaos, all while secrets loom larger than life. "Tell us, Marcus, what are you so desperate to reveal? Is it the truth that covers this family like a shroud, or something worse?" I felt the room close in around me as every eye fixated on the unfolding drama. The weight of their gaze bore down harder than before, pressing against the fragile barriers of my emotions. This wasn't just about my mother's past anymore. This was about my future, our future caught under the ruthless scrutiny of John's manipulations. "Lucy, please listen," Marcus continued, an edge of desperation threading his words. "Your mother and we had some unfinished business. There were things she didn't want you to know." Moments passed in silence, filled only with the sound of my heart pounding, the air thick with anticipation. My mother's breathing grew shallow, the horror dawning upon her features like a slowly rising tide of regret. "What do you mean?" she gasped, her voice trembling. "Some truths, no matter how distant, have a way of creeping back, and I thought I could keep them hidden." His voice cracked, haunted by memories I couldn't begin to fathom. "But Jonas, he's playing a game with everything he knows, and it threatens your family. He's making the past our future." John's laughter rang through the gala as he stepped closer, his eyes glinting like shards of glass. "And what a game it is. Wouldn't you want to know the tales that bind you together? Or perhaps tear you apart?" "Marcus," I pleaded, but my voice was drowned in a swell of anxiety. "Please just tell us." "The accident," he finally said, his voice now barely above a whisper. "Your mother, the night of the accident, she wasn't alone. There were others involved in decisions that could change everything you thought you knew. If Jonas exposes what he knows, stop," I shouted, panicked realization pushing through the chaos. "You can't let him win this way. We might have a chance to confront this together." John's smirk broadened, his triumphant gaze locked onto Marcus. "Ah, but such a lovely call to arms. All this talk of family love, yet here we are, standing at the very edge of the truth. The reveal may lead to scandal or redemption. The choice is yours to make." With each of his taunts, the room seemed to shift and shimmer around us, a tide pulling us into the unknown depths of our intertwined destinies. The truth dangled precariously, threatening to tip the fragile balance of our lives. Emotions spiraled, caught in the whirlwind of potential devastation. And then, just as clarity began to pierce through the fog of confusion, another voice broke through the noise, a calm yet haunting echo that silenced the chaos lingering in the air. "Lucy, Marcus, it's time to face the music." I turned slowly, my heart freezing at the sight of the last person I expected to see, family lawyer, Angela, her face pale, yet resolute, advancing through the throng with a clutch of papers in hand. "Angela?" I whispered, hope flickering in the corners of my mind as dread began to rear its head once more. "This is a matter that can no longer hide in the shadows," she said, locking eyes with my mother. "And it affects all of you." As I stood there, encircled in uncertainty and flickering flames of revelations burning a path through our fragile lives, I understood. We were trapped in an immovable vortex of timing and consequence, inching closer to a precipice from which there was no return. "Angela," I started, but she held up a hand, silencing my fear as she approached. As she began to unfold the documents, life felt as if it had paused, the crowd waiting with bated breath. But deep within me, the storm was only just beginning, and the weight of impending revelations hovered like a shadow, dark, menacing, ready to swallow us whole. "Before we act, I need to ask," she stated, drawing in a breath. "Are we ready to confront the truth? Or shall we allow John's manipulations to dictate our fate?" In that moment, I realized Jonas had awakened not just hidden secrets, but also a fear of the unknown that gripped tightly at our hearts. daring us to reveal what had been kept in the dark for far too long. And as I stood at the edge of this unforeseen abyss, I knew whatever awaited us was beyond the veil of simple revelations. It would mold us in ways I could never predict. Angela's gaze bore into us, her expression a practiced calm amidst our rising storm. The papers trembled in her hands as she struggled to find the words wrapped in a haze of fear and resolve. My mind fractured with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. "Lucy," my mother whispered, a single tear escaping the corner of her eye. "What does she mean? What truth?" I wanted to shield her from the impending dread, to pull her away from this moment and escape into the safety of familiarity. But escape wasn't an option anymore. Life had tangled our fates too tightly. "Jonas may have been right about one thing," Angela said, her voice steady despite the tremors of tension in the room. "Some secrets have a way of revealing themselves. This isn't just about what happened. It's about what has persisted in silence." "What are you talking about?" I demanded, a surge of defiance igniting inside me. "We deserve to know, not stood holding our breaths while you, Lucy, please." Even my mother's gentleness felt strained. "If Angelo is here, it means we can't run anymore." Jonas chuckled, now observing us with a feline grace, ready to pounce. "The wise lawyer has come to play, hasn't she? But oh, dear Lucy, do you not see the chains shackling you? You're stuck in an elaborate web spun by someone who knows your family's secrets better than you ever will." As Marcus stood by my side, his body tensing with uncertainty. I felt the invisible bonds connect us. Yet, there was a disturbance in the air with Angela's revelation looming just beyond the curtain. What could possibly follow would unravel everything we held sacred. "Look at it this way," Jonas spoke, his fingers dancing in the air as he gestured toward us. "Your family is about to be set free from its chains, but at what cost? Truth is a double-edged sword, and hope often springs at the highest price. Are you saying this to rattle us?" Marcus shot back, anger colliding with fear in his eyes. "What do you want, Jonas?" "Oh, it's not about what I want, dear Marcus. It's about what I can give." He straightened slightly, mischief sparkling in his gaze. "You see, I possess those documents, and if you don't want them revealed to the world, then perhaps you should consider ways of maintaining balance amongst yourselves." "Enough." Angela's command echoed in the silence, strong yet gentle. "We won't hide anymore. If it means exposing our truths, so be it." "Isn't that a lovely sentiment?" Jonas sneered, "but I can assure you that things are rarely as noble as they seem." Then, as if orchestrated by the universe to provide a moment of distraction, the lights overhead flickered ominously before dimming completely. A hush fell over the crowd, and the piercing sound of glass shattering resonated from somewhere in the back. Gasps erupted, and confusion morphed into fear that rippled through the throng. A voice called, "Get help." In this sudden burst of chaos, the tension ruptured momentarily, and eyes darted around the room while my heart raced. Darkness blanketed us, but within that darkness was a space of vulnerability that both terrified me and offered a strange comfort. "Marcus," I whispered, feeling a flicker of connection amidst the uncertainty. "If this is our moment, we must stand together." He nodded, and we found ourselves instinctively inching closer, our hands brushing. But that gesture of unity held too many unspoken faces behind Ithis worries, my fears, my mother's weeping uncertainties. "Stay close," I urged, realizing that even in the screams and fray, I was only truly anchored to him, that his determination could offer some meager semblance of safety. The lights flickered back to life, bathing us in a harsh brilliance once more. My mother stood in shock, eyes wide as she took a step toward Angela, who was now focused, gathering herself. "Let's do this," Angela said firmly, exhaling a breath that had no doubt been held since she stepped into the room. "Wait." Jonas had adopted a more serious tone, the quip from before replaced with genuine concern. "You move too quickly, my dear. Sometimes, it's best to remain in the shadows where the light cannot expose the sins that reside. Secrets can't remain hidden forever," I challenged back, shaking as courage imbued my voice. "We're done living in fear, and we won't let you decide our fate, Lucy." My mother gasped, but my defiance only ignited a spark of courage. And in that chaotic moment, with both the remaining truths and acts threatened to burst forth, An undeniable transition unfolded as the world around us pivoted on the brink of revelation. The fabric of our lives began to unravel, threatening to expose the raw edges buried beneath our once guarded hearts. That it was then, suspended amidst the tension, that I noticed Angela's eyes grow wide, as if struck by a revelation of her own. She took a careful step back, glancing down at the papers in her grasp, and I felt the world still for a heartbeat. "Lucy," she said slowly, "there's something else you need to see." I didn't want to believe it, but it's here, and it will change everything. The air turned heavy with impending doom, and Helios in human form Jonas bore the delight of an impending storm. "Oh, this is going to get very interesting," he murmured, a sinister grin curling his lips as I braced myself against the weight of the unraveling truths that were about to tear through our fragile existence. But before Angela could unveil the depths of what she had discovered, I whipped around, desperate to shield my mother from the oncoming waves of chaos, determined to confront the shadows of our past together, even if it meant plunging headfirst into darkness. Just as realization dawned, another cry rang through the crowd, echoing and resolving into a single name: the cause of this tangled knot. Lucy. Panic flooded my veins, drowning out all rational thoughts. The identity of who called out to me seemed an uncanny mixture of despair and urgency. It didn't take long for me to recognize that voice. It was too familiar, too precious to ignore. "Lucy, they found something. We need you." The words sliced through the chaos, amplifying my anticipation and dread alike. And in that moment, as uncertainty gripped my chest once more, everything threatened to shatter once and for all, leaving me dangling, with the chasm of truth yawning wide before me, hanging in the balance between salvation and destruction. I took a deep breath, summoning all the courage I could muster, as the world around me blurred into chaos. Each heartbeat pounded louder as I took a step toward the blaring noise, knowing that whatever awaited me on the other side of revelation would not just change the course of this night, but the narrative of my life itself. The truth, like a tempest, demanded to be heard, even if it tore apart the very fabric of who I believed my family to be. The crowd rippled beneath me, a sea of anxious faces wondering what revelation would come next. Marcus was at my side, his presence a grounding force. I grabbed his hand tightly, as if trying to anchor myself to the moment. "Whatever happens, we face it together," I whispered, looking into his eyes, seeking that flicker of unwavering support. The tension hung thick in the air as I advanced toward the voice that had pierced through the storm, a mix of urgency and clarity that resonated with my very being. "Who called for me?" I shouted, my voice echoing through the confusion. And then I saw a Hera figure pushing through the throngs, a beacon drawn to me by some magnetic urgency. Clara. Her face held an intensity, slathered in layers of determination, adorned with the shadows of fear. "Lucy, please," she urged as she reached me. "You need to see this." I wanted to scream, demand answers while shaking the world around me, but something in her voice held me back. I sensed the urgency behind it, the tremor that spelled danger. I stepped closer to her, still clutching onto Marcus. "What is it?" She gulped, gathering all her strength for the words she was about to utter, words that promised to alter everything. "It's about your mother. It's serious. We need to show you something now." The tumult behind us faded into a distant murmur, and with that pull of fate urging me forward, I forced out the air I had kept stifled in my lungs and pushed through the crowd. Clara led me through the fray, her movements quick and determined as we slipped away from the tangle of faces. Once we were clear of the bustling chatter, she turned to face me, her expression a mixture of fear and empathy. "Lucy, I found something that connects your family to the allegations, something from your mother's past that can either save you or destroy you altogether." Panic crept into my gut. "What do you mean?" My breath caught in my throat, urgency tuning my senses. "What did you find?" She hesitated, and I could see her resolve trembling. "It's an old article I stumbled upon, Lucy. It speaks about a tragic accident years ago, a car crash that involved your mother. They mentioned someone else, the name. It was linked to a businessman. And it's the same name that has been thrown around in connection to the allegations swirling right now." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, an unfamiliar tide pulling me sideways. "What? Who?" I stammered, unable to process what she was saying. But beneath the tide of uncertainty, something clicked. Jonas. Clara nodded solemnly as we made our way out toward a quiet corner of the gala grounds, her eyes darting nervously back toward the throng we had left behind. He's been using the past against your family. This isn't just about ruining reputations, it goes deeper than that. He knows something that could shake the very foundation of your lives, and time is running out. I glanced back at the gathering crowd, the vulnerability of the moment sending tremors through my veins. I had felt so much anger directed at Jonas, but now there was a deeper layering of realization that haunted me. Why didn't my family talk about this? Why keep it a secret? Fear, Lucy, Clara replied. Fear of the past coming back to life. Fear of what people might think. Your mother isn't just your mother. She's a woman who has battled her demons for years, and it's time you and she faced them together. For all of you, I stood there. The rising storm in my heart was raw and unyielding, a mixture of betrayal, sorrow, and an unfathomable ache for the truth I had long been deprived of. Suddenly, I turned to Clara. We have to bring this to light now. Not just for us, but for her. We can't let Jonas control this narrative. That we exchanged determined looks, the electric thrill of urgency feeding our resolve. As we prepared to turn back toward the chaos of the gala, I glanced at Marcus, who stood silently behind me. Are you in this with us? He nodded once, a fierce conviction shadowing his features. Together, whatever it takes. My heart pounded as I turned, sensing the importance of this moment jolting inside me. Clara and Marcus flanked me like pillars of strength as we headed back toward the folding chaos, ready to confront the very source of our struggles. Emerging from the throes of uncertainty, I declared with a purpose fueled by our past and our future entwined, we are not hiding anymore. It's time to tell the truth. As we stepped into the chaos, the tension surged like a fire pulsing against the night, reflections of anticipation and raw emotion cascading around us. The crowd shifted, eyes narrowing with curiosity as I focused on Jonas, who seemed oblivious to our imminent resolve as he crowed about family secrets, continuing to weave his twisted narrative in the center of it all. But just as I gathered my breath, something shattered like glass breaking against the wave of reality, and the air filled with murmurs of confusion, fearing the climax of our about to unravel drama. Jana, my mother, appeared from the other side, her expression frozen, ripe with confusion and shadows from the past we had kept quiet. Lucy? She called weakly, her voice stretching thin against the palpable tension. Mom, we need to talk, I replied, a raw weight beginning to settle in my bones. I saw the moment she registered the urgency in my tone, the apprehension piercing through her facade of control. Now, I declared, clenching Clara's hand tightly on one side and Marcus on the other, hoping that the burning sense of solidarity would help us navigate through both the past and the present. Jonas' laughter rang hollow, ringing in the back of my mind like a dissonant note that couldn't be silenced. I turned to him, an inner fire igniting as I stepped forward, a fierce protector now drawn to the forefront. You think you know my family's secrets? My voice rang clear, unwavering in the tumult. You're about to learn the truth of who we really are. And in that moment, as the crowd hushed in anticipation, I felt every shadow recede, the chaos swirling behind me transforming into something I had long awaited. We were taking the first steps toward reclaiming our narrative, ready to confront whatever awaited us. The truth hung tantalizing in the air. I locked eyes with my mother, a blend of fear and determination bubbling below her surface. Today, we would face the darkness together. Today, we would weave a new tapestry from the threads of our history, fear dissolving into resiliency, a legacy forged not through secrets, but through the power of facing the truth. In that heavy silence, the world waited, and as we stood there on the precipice of revelation, I took the plunging step forward, ready to transform the boundaries of our fate, because here, together, we would rise again.